Transformation, transformation, and more transformation. A transformative work culture that prioritizes top-notch service delivery by the public service, targeting achievements of an upper middle income society by the year 2030. That is the clarion call from the Human Resources Agency of Government, the Public Service Commission. This is part 2 of a 2-part commission interview series. Welcome aboard, episode 1. We bring you Chairman of the Public Service Commission, Dr. Vincent Hungwe, giving policy direction on the role of the Public Service Commission towards attainment of Vision 2030.
Let me take you to the issue of performance management, sir. Can you speak to that?
Yes. Performance management is key. I referred to a performance culture earlier on. A performance culture is one that actually builds within the individual a sense of accountability, right? And accountability arises out of the fact that you accept certain responsibilities, which responsibilities you can measure in terms of the targets that you set for yourselves and the extent to which you achieve those targets, and to the extent that you have achieved those targets, your expectations in terms of the incentives to achieve. But at the same time, you might also fail to achieve those targets, not because you are inherently incapable of achieving them, but because there are certain gaps, right, in the environment in which you are operating, which gaps, if closed through continuous training and skills development, can make you perform better. And of course, there are different ways in the context of behavioral alignments that can be mobilized in order to ensure that non-performance is extinguished or non-performance is transformed into something that can become an opportunity for growth at the individual level and an opportunity for growth in terms of delivering the results and outcomes that we all strive to see.
So what you're saying, all of it, if put in a nutshell, just speak to the issue of transformation, transformative agenda. What sort of leadership are we talking about in terms of all the structures, the leadership in the structures, the sub-national, the national structures? Can you speak to the issue of leadership?
That's very important. That's very important. Well, one is drawn to observations that others who are better competent to comment on these matters. There's an observation that Maxwell makes that there are different levels of leadership.
John Maxwell?
John Maxwell, yes. John Maxwell. He talks about the different levels of leadership. Leadership that is positional. I'm the chairman of the Public Service Commission, and that post comes with a lot of authority, some would say power, and I can use that authority and power, right, to demonstrate that I'm a leader. In other words, I can use authority and power to force people to conform to things that are, in fact, at the end of the day, are not manifestly of a nature that is in the direction of betterment lies for our institutions. Right? But you can also use power in order to begin to influence, to create an environment of where there is permission for others that you work with on a day-to-day basis to want to become part of your vision, right? Using authority to be able to influence in a positive direction. Beyond influencing, you also want them to feel supported, that they can actually take certain actions which are in the interest of the organization. Beyond the permission, there is also the other dimension of making sure that we develop the capacity of those that are being permitted to do things to be able to do the things in the right manner, right? And ultimately, you also need to make sure that those who have got those competencies also see themselves as future leaders. I think one of the fundamental characteristic of leadership is you must be able to say, feel confident that you are going to create an environment that makes it possible for you to live and others to come in. And if you cannot do that with your team members, then there's something fundamentally wrong with your understanding of leadership. But the bottom line is, leadership, transformative leadership, is very, very important. And these are some of the things that we expect in the Public Service Academy to be able to develop modules around, so that current leaders become part and parcel of the transformation that makes it possible for us to sustain our institutions as we go into the future.
You know, sir, we've spent a lot of time talking about your work.
Yes.
About the macro perspective, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Can we zero in on who you are, sir, on a personal level?
Oh, wow.
Can
That's a private matter. That's a private matter.
Could you tell, could you share whatever you are comfortable sharing with our viewers, who Dr. Vincent Hungwe is and what your personal motivations are?
Wow, that's an interesting one. Well, Dr. Vincent Hungwe is one person that believes that there is a purpose in life. Right? We are not, well, like some philosopher, you know, she's called Arendt. Arendt has written a book called The Human Condition. And she's a Jewish philosopher, American ilk. She has written a book called The Human Condition. She says, well, people are not only born to die, but they are born to fulfill a purpose, right? In the knowledge that at some point they will die. So it is that purposiveness of life that kind of motivates me to say you need to have a purpose in life, you need to be passionate about your purpose, you also need to be compassionate in pursuit of that purpose, you also need to create an environment where you can say at the end of the day, I actually made a contribution that made a difference in people's lives, right? So that's fundamentally is the kind of philosophy that motivates me. But in order for you to be able to do that, you also must exhibit, one, a contemplative mind, and a contemplative mind is one that comes about because you want to engage with ideas, right? You want to engage with new information. You want to engage with innovation, with technology, and you are not therefore in a position to consistently close off others who might actually have much more better ideas than you have. And this is basically what motivates me. Beyond that, of course, there is Vincent Hungwe, the family person. There's Vincent Hungwe, a member of an extended family. There's Vincent Hungwe, who is interested in non-business-like pursuits like sports, and I'm a very avid golfer, and a golfer of fairly modest competencies, I might say. And that is what, in many instances, we talk about a work-life balance. Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are the kind of things that motivate.
All right.
Yeah.
Speaking of work-life balance, do you have any work-life philosophy that you adhere to?
Yes, I mean, having that balance between, okay, this is now time for work, right? But you see, even at workplaces, there are certain things that you would also find in non-workplaces. You know, compassion, an ability to engage with others without rancor, an ability to be able to take a shot regardless of where it is coming from, an ability to use the whole notion of leadership, authority, to create an environment that is conducive for mutual growth for all those that are part and parcel of the organization and or the institution. Right? And those are characteristics that you cannot confine to a work situation. You also need to have those kind of things at home as well. Of course, too much play, little play, too much work and little play invariably also makes Johnny a dull boy, doesn't it?
It does.
Yes, it does. So much as we work, hey, let's also have time to have fun. COVID has kind of intervened with certain plans that we always make on an annual basis. You know, I always want to make sure that sometime during the year, I set aside 15 to 24 days to go and have fun and play somewhere. But I hope COVID is not going to continue to frustrate us in that front.
Sure. Can you take us back to your humble beginnings, where, for example, in 1983 to 1984, you were a teacher, and now you are sought after on the global and international stage. What do you attribute your success to?
Yes, teacher, yes. In fact, there are times when I meet quite a number of people, high-ranking government officials, even politicians, senators and MPs, who were some of our students in the early 80s. So that is a source of an inspiration and satisfaction. But you see, going beyond the local, you know, I've always wanted to take risks, and those risks, in some instances, entail crossing boundaries, professional boundaries. Right? Yes, I was trained as a teacher, but I felt that I could actually become more than a teacher. And what does it require in order for me to become something else beyond the teaching? And of course, whatever I do is always based on the extent to which what I already have can constitute the shoulders on which I can stand in order to see more beyond. So I was a teacher, but I subsequently became a regional enabling planner, right? And I subsequently became a land manager, or an expert in real estate development, real estate investment, real estate management, and so forth. And I ultimately ended up being a development economist. Right? So I was always ready to breach boundaries, be they of disciplinary nature or of a professional nature. And beyond that, I was also not afraid to say, hey, I can actually go beyond Zimbabwe in order to go and deepen and expand my knowledge. I can actually go beyond the continent to do exactly that. And ultimately, everybody finds themselves, they find their way back to the mother country. And that's basically what I did. Teacher, locally based, UNCF, United Nations Capital Development Fund, United Nations Development Program, the African Institute for Community Development Planning and Management, and so forth. And Botswana serving for South Africa. But we are all now back here.
So that makes you a personification of a typical learned Zimbabwean, an elite group that is dotted across the entire globe, having worked locally and abroad in the public and private sector. What is your strategy to ensure that the country benefits from most of these experts on whom it's made massive investment?
We are quite generous in your compliments. Thank you very much for it. But the bottom line is, all those experiences, at the end of the day, where we are today, form the basis upon which is leadership. And I want to locate this in the context of the tripartite forum of government. A tripartite that includes the Office of the President, the Public Service Commission, and Treasury, right? And there's a particular role where you see all the knowledge, the skills beginning to pan out in terms of informing and influencing processes on how the Second Republic, the new dispensation, is doing its work, right? And that you find at the policy level. Talked about the stabilization program. Now the policies that are now informing the National Development Strategy 1, and the policies and the values, the principles that informed the vision, right? And of course, all those things do not belong to the tripartite. The tripartite is only there to make it native to Zimbabwe. The holder of that humongous vision is His Excellency the President, drawing from the mandate that he has gotten from the people. Now the issue is, how do you bring all those skills, those competencies, those experiences, local, regional, continental, global, multi-stakeholder, multi-partnership, in order to bring to bear the wings that are required to fly in the direction of Vision 2030. And to me, that experience has been quite invaluable.
Okay. So you were permanent secretary in a number of ministries: lands and agriculture, local government, public works, and national housing, and then the Minister of Science and Technology Development. Mm-hmm. It has been generally observed that our public sector is plagued by the so-called silo mentality. What, in your view, can help address this scourge of silo mentality?
Oh, well, there are quite a number. I'll just focus on three issues. Mm-hmm. The first one is what is required for a cohesive, integrated, mutually reinforcing national planning and implementation management system. And what we have done in the past 3 years by way of coming up with arrangements at 3 levels. First is the tripartite level, where the Public Service Commission, the Office of the President, and Treasury have come together to form an entity, a unit, that has got a helicopter view of what is happening throughout the whole country, and saying, from a purely development planning perspective, what is it that we require? But in order for us to be able to do this, what are the human skills that are required? What are the competencies that are required right across the board? And for us to be able to, how are we going to finance it? To me, is in fact a very critical step in the direction of bringing about programmatic policy and operational cohesion within the state to avoid the silo mentality. Take it down a little bit, you will find that there is no ministry in this country that does not belong to a cluster. And those clusters actually constitute the pillars on which the National Development Strategy 1 actually stands. So there is nothing that a ministry can claim to be doing, right, without understanding how it actually contributes to the development outcomes and results of a given structure or cluster, I beg your pardon, to which they actually belong. Right? So the way the plan was put together, the way the plan is being implemented, the way the plan is actually being monitored and evaluated, forces you to recognize that there is no way you can achieve your targets absent the collaboration, right, with other line ministries. Is it working well? It is working well this far, but we're also beginning to see some teething problems. And one of them is in the area of, to what extent do you then promote the availability of information in order for those clusters to plan well, to implement well, and to monitor well? You need pointedly a significant pivoting in the direction of creating information communication technology platforms to facilitate effective communication amongst members of the cluster and amongst members of the tripartite that are collectively driving a whole range of strategic initiatives towards the realization of the objectives of the plan and ultimately the objective, the vision 2030. The fourth dimension, I had not thought about it, is really the whole notion of decentralized and devolved governance. Because now what you are going to begin to see is that the Office of the Minister of State, with the support of the provincial development coordinators, are actually going to form the hub into which the spokes that are coming from the different line ministries are going to be coordinated at the subnational level in order for the integration and cohesion to actually be sustained at lower levels of central government, that is at the provinces and at the districts. And this is our experience. We are rolling it out, we are learning from it, and we will continue to improve on it. But these are these very specific interventions that one immediately sees consistent with the imperative to ensure the extinguishing of silo mentality within government.
Okay. So just so I ask you to unpack a bit, are we saying that when we refer to the issue of clusters and clustering, that instead of a ministry implementing programs as a ministry, it's now doing that as part of a cluster?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. In fact, you raise a very relevant issue called program-based budgeting. In other words, your program as a minister, your program as a minister,
yes, sir,
can only make sense to the extent that it is contributing to a certain set of outcomes and results of a cluster.
of a cluster.
And Secretary Guamatanga, our head of treasury, will allocate resources to the extent that you have demonstrated your contribution to the cluster. Right? Because it is in the context of the cluster, certain outcomes are going to be realized. So you can't go to Secretary Guamatanga and ask, say, no, we want resources for A, B, C, D. If that is not articulated by way of it, how does it contribute to what you are supposed to do in the context of NDS? You are part of this cluster, and these are your outcomes. So which outcomes are you running with? If you cannot prove the causal relationship, the results matrix, you cannot then justify why you should be given resources. If you cannot say to the Public Service Commission, we need a director for power development, we want to see, which particular set of activities is that director going to drive in order to be able to contribute to which particular outcomes. I think that discipline is very important.
Interesting, sir. So you were also at one time policy advisor / technical specialist for local economic development and decentralization under the UNDP in our sister country of Botswana.
Yes.
What countries can you draw from there that can be applied to the Zimbabwean situation?
Yeah, interesting. Yes, I was the regional policy advisor for, well, it was really not for Botswana, but it was for SADC, but the UN office that was responsible for that was based in Botswana. You see, let me go back to decentralization and devolution. See, there are certain skills that we require in order to ensure that our provinces begin to undertake local economic analysis to identify where are the comparative advantages, right? Much south, talking about their deep soils, there's water, and, different dams. Masvingo will be talking about a lot of water bodies in the province, and other provinces you're talking about the availability of minerals, availability of, in Manicaland is flora and fauna, beautiful landscapes and so forth. So you need to be able to undertake local economic analysis in order to understand where do you have comparative and competitive advantage, right? Having done that, you then need to develop a whole host of business proposals on the back of which you can then, attract investments, right? And when you attract these investments, you are now beginning to, and the investments need not always come from outside. It can also come from local investments. Government building infrastructure, roads, dams, providing electricity, information communication technology infrastructure and so forth, right? But it can also come from outside, right? And so forth. Now, all those competencies are critical in the context of what we refer there to as local economic development. And that's basically what I was focusing on in the entire region when I was based in Botswana. And those are the kind of experiences now that we want to bring to Zimbabwe and say, hey, we need to develop our local economic development competencies in the context of decentralization and devolution, because that's where the factor endowments are found. Let's go and identify them. Let's go and figure out how to exploit them. Let's go and create business opportunities. Let's go and invite people to come and become part and parcel of a sub-national economic growth system. Who are our partners? Certainly, the United Nations, well, locally, to start locally. Who are our partners locally? Our partners are our local investors. This is where the context in which people ought to understand ZIDA, the Zimbabwe Investment and Development Authority. Right? ZIDA was actually going to be one of the partners for ministers of state in order to promote investment, because ZIDA has got a wide remit, local, regional, global, and continental and international. So where will all these investors go? They must go to areas where the opportunities have been identified. And those opportunities are identified in the context of a local economic development agenda, which is principally driven by the ministers of state and the structures that the Public Service Commission has provided them. Other partners are institutions of higher learning. I'm always impressed by the work that the Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education has been doing in the area of innovation hubs and technologies and so forth and so on. All those things become part and parcel of the actors at the local level to energize, right? To make our economies more robust at the sub-national level, together with government, together with ZIDA, together with local partners, so forth and so on. So that experience is turning out to be quite interesting. Yeah, we are in our formative stages, but believe you me, I think decentralization, devolution is going to be a game changer in this country.
Interesting, sir. So you mentioned partners. And when we're talking partners, obviously there's also partners, development partners.
Yes.
How does one ensure that when we engage with partners, the relationship is non-exploitative and that it is mutually beneficial?
The President says, well, the responsibility for building one's country to become an inclusive society and a sustainable one for that matter, sustainable in economic, social and environmental terms, cannot be farmed out to anybody. It is the responsibility of citizens to do that, right? But citizens, to the extent that they are informed and are basing the work that they do on shared values and principles, we always find people with like minds to come and want to work with them. And to me, the fundamental responsibility lies with us as Zimbabweans to be able to ensure that we put in place plans and we execute them with the kind of consistency and commitment to moral rectitude that many people find very easy to associate with. Having said that, though, there are quite a number of partners that have already demonstrated their willingness to work with the government of Zimbabwe, and we are very, very happy that they have become part and parcel of our public sector reform agendas, and they have been supporting us in terms of developing the National Development Plan and even monitoring its implementation.
In your position and capacities as chairperson of the service commissions or the service commissions, what would constitute an enabling environment enough for you to execute your mandate to your best possible?
I think this is really openness, honesty, and transparency in the way we engage with each other. And quite honestly, I found the tripartite arrangement a platform that we took too long to establish and exploit. And when you look at the tripartite, it really represents all the institutions that one could think about. Remember, as chairman of the Public Service Commission, I also work very closely with colleagues in the Defense Forces Commission, Police Service Commission, Prisons and Correctional Services. So when we are meeting as part and parcel of the tripartite, one can hardly imagine which institution doesn't feel represented at that level. And it is that preparedness to do things well, honestly, share information, and work with a common goal in mind that has made our work at the Public Service Commission a very enjoyable one. Yes, but this is not to suggest that there are no challenges. They are there. But challenges become such to the extent that you are less or least prepared for it.
All right, sir, back to you again. On a personal note, when you do take time off, sir, which we're supposed to do from time to time like everybody else, what fills up that time?
Oh, what fills up time is family. What fills up time is pursuits like sport, like I've indicated, and I'm also now I'm pursuing other areas of interest, and farming is becoming a very interesting dimension to my life. talk about family. See, when at some point in your life, for example, when you retire, and they say there are three things that usually are very important. It's income to be able to keep on living, and it is also family, extended family, and friends. So when you get time off work, you must make sure that you work on deepening, strengthening relationships with family and with friends.
Interesting, sir. Speaking of sports, what's your favorite team?
Well, which one?
Soccer, are you into soccer at all? Or?
Well, yes. I'm a soccer fan, but my team has now been kind of. It has not been doing well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a Dynamos fan.
You're a Dynamos fan.
Absolutely.
All right. Interesting, sir. Now, sir, we've come to the end of the interview, but is a parting shot. Is there anything you would like to tell the viewers, maybe that you may not have touched on?
No, not quite, not touched on. Mm-hmm. But for viewers to continue to appreciate the work of the Public Service Commission. Mm-hmm. The Public Service Commission has transformed itself from being a purely a human resource entity to becoming a strategic facilitator of government interventions towards the achievement of its national development objectives. And beyond that, this is not a responsibility that the Public Service Commission